So recently, my team was tasked with rebuilding the backend of a music sharing app. So I spent a fair amount of time analyzing how this data was going to be stored into the table because there's a lot of related information and a lot of associated information that gets stored with each song and playlist. And I looked into a lot of different databases, including Maria and MySQL, and to help like decide whether or not I wanted to work with any of the ones that I've already worked with before, or if I wanted to try something new. Ultimately, I chose to work between Cassandra and Postgres because I wanted to do a relational database. I wanted to work with one that was maybe a little bit newer and more intuitive than MySQL. And with Cassandra, I had heard a lot of good things about really fast read times and how data is associated. And and I wanted to see if it would work better for this kind of application where there is a lot of information and a lot of related information that gets stored into each database table. And so a big part uh, of designing or building this out for me was not so much the schema, but how I was going to pull that information and how I was going to basically store it once it was put into the database. So like a big thing for Cassandra too is the fact that like, you know, you need to know how you want to display it before you store it into the table. Otherwise you might be, you know, doing unnecessary work for yourself because you really only want to store the information that you're going to need to produce, because otherwise you're going to store a lot of copies of something and that just takes up more space. So I spent a lot of time researching ways to seed faster and write faster, and I worked on my computer to allocate more RAM. I definitely got it running pretty fast. I think it was down to like 1.8 milliseconds on Postgres and 3 milliseconds on Cassandra. But I ultimately wanted to see if I could make it go a little bit faster once I decided on a database such as Postgres, which wasn't really a super hard decision for me because I really wanted a lot of my related data to be able to have these joins, these inner joins, and be able to store it in another place for if I needed it. So with the mouse over features for my application, I don't need that information all the time. I only need it if a user is interacting with it. And so it seemed important to me to not slow down my query times by storing a bunch of information that was maybe unnecessary or maybe actually not needed. And so while Cassandra was relatively fast, it wasn't as fast as Postgres in my queries. And so now I am trying to get the indexing or trying to get the time down by indexing these things, which actually is taking a lot of time to store, but hopefully it will remove that time on the back end when it comes to reading and querying. So yeah, thank you.